Ah, nice. I'm petting a horse. On a train. Choo-choo. Oh, hey, I didn't see you there. Just playing with my Meta headset. About 10 years ago, I made a video exploring the state of VR and its unrealized potential at the time. I was deeply skeptical that putting a screen an inch away from your face was the future of entertainment, especially when phone screens were already trying very hard to occupy that space. Now felt like the right time to revisit the topic, not because there's some kind of renewed energy in the space, far from it. It's clear that, like COVID, what was a fad that had a huge splash years ago, now it'll have a small niche in the gumbo sickness we call American healthcare. Powerhouses like the flu continue to dominate, but the oldies like the measles are starting to make a new comeback. What wonderful times. I purchased 2 Meta Quest headsets over the past 5 years, which means I'm no longer just a critic. I'm stupid, and increasingly aware that I might be part of the problem. Surely the latest iteration of the great virtual reality experiment will finally convince me that it was all worth it. Let's rewind.
Decades of hype, virtual reality is set to experience its mass market moment in 2016.
The latest must-have high-tech gadget is now on the market and in high demand. It's a virtual reality headset.
2016 is really year one. There's definitely a big wave coming.
10 years ago, the VR market looked hopeful. There was a exuberance and optimism to the promise. Stores set up valuable floor space where you could test out the future of gaming, entertainment. Oculus was the biggest Kickstarter success of 2012. The company, started by Palmer Luckey in 2009 when he was just 16. It was purchased by Facebook for $2 billion. At the time, this felt like validation. It was the biggest investment from one of the big tech companies that was playing around with the idea of making hardware. Though, who knows how much money Sony and Microsoft threw at their own respective failures. Today, Oculus VR barely cracks the top 250 Kickstarters of all time. If you ever want to feel a deep sadness, read Wikipedia's list of the most successful crowdfunding campaigns. It's mostly crypto projects and Christian movies these days. It makes you feel really good about the idea of going to audiences to fund new creative endeavors. The Oculus Rift launched in 2016. This was supposed to be the moment. You have Facebook's money,
Hey everyone.
John Carmack's technical wizardry, and a group of people who were extremely passionate about virtual reality. The system was released at a price point of $600. Surely this would amount to something remarkable and not something out of touch and cringy. Less than a month later, Valve partnered with the laptop and smartphone manufacturer HTC to release the HTC Vive. This was a headset designed for enthusiasts, people who wanted full room scale VR and were willing to transform their living rooms into the spider web of sensors, cables, and mounting hardware. Got the best experience VR could offer at the time, with you being the spider in the middle of that web. The Vive combined HTC's hardware expertise with Valve's software ecosystem and native Steam VR support. The system was released at a price point of $800, $200 more than the Oculus Rift. Later that same year, Sony entered the market with the PlayStation VR. Sony's strategy was simple: lower that barrier of entry if you already own the PlayStation 4 and Move controllers. VR suddenly felt attainable, though most people didn't have the PlayStation camera or Move controllers. This is why there were a lot of them to bundle with the headset. The system was released with just the headset at $400. The full bundle that included the PlayStation camera and 2 controllers was $500. Even the worst case scenario, where you didn't have a PlayStation, you're still saving money more than if you had to purchase an Oculus and the lowest end PC you needed. Though you definitely didn't get PC level graphics. For a brief moment, it felt like VR had promise, but all of these systems had one thing in common:
biodigital jazz.
Complexity. Every major headset required external sensors. Some were elaborate, some were simple, but All of them demanded space, setup, and commitment. Even seated play required planning. Sensors had to see you, cables had to reach you, and if you couldn't afford any of that or didn't have the space or PC horsepower, your entry point was smartphone VR. Google Cardboard, Samsung Gear VR, holding your phone up to your face and pretending like this was the future.
Ow.
And that was my entry point. I owned the Samsung Gear VR and played a few games that you could play on that headset. Eventually, I got the controllers for it, and it was all right. It would be hard for these to overtake the decades of thumbstick and button-based gameplay on a 2D plane most people were used to, where they could sit on their couch, eat Doritos, and drink Mountain Dew, and hurl the most heinous slurs at their TVs. I guess you could still do that with VR, though it wouldn't be the same.
Farts!
This wide range of complexity and virtual reality ensured that there was an access point for everyone. As sales rolled in and the cracks became obvious, there was no killer app. Analysts downgraded VR's growth potential and projections by 30%, and then again by 22%. The biggest hurdle wasn't the technology, it was awareness and fragmentation. Depending on which walled garden you chose, you might lock yourself out of the one game you actually wanted. Exclusives were everywhere. Some of them felt really arbitrary. Some of them was very punitive. And then nothing really changed. Yes, there were changes here and there. Headsets got lighter. Streaming technology improved. Now a wireless experience was possible, but the revolution never really happened. Flash forward to today, 2026, almost a decade later, it feels like we're still in the same place, despite the big hurdles to making VR more convenient and easier for most audiences. After half supporting the PlayStation VR system, Sony has come out with the PlayStation VR 2, and after a year, has halted production, only producing 2 million units, according to Bloomberg. A year after VR 1 was released, 2 million headsets were sold. Oculus, now in 2026, has had its whole identity stripped from it. Lucky was excommunicated from Facebook after it came out he was making political donations to Republican super PACs, back when that was controversial, and developers started to distance themselves from Facebook. A year after the first consumer version of the Oculus was released, Lucky left Facebook. Carmack remained as CTO of Oculus until 2022 when he left to work on his own AI startup. Now, having the name ripped off the Oculus Quest 2 and replaced with the new name of Facebook, Meta, they were renamed twice. First to Facebook Reality Labs and then finally Reality Labs. The Quest 2 sold very well actually and seemed to penetrate the mainstream a bit with 20 million units sold. It had an absurdly low price tag of $300. Facebook, Meta, whatever they want it to be called these days, wanted these in every household in America, taking a loss with every headset sold. The vision was a world where you could do anything anywhere with anyone, which really helps when communicating to a general audience. They love vague promises when dealing with new technologies. Meta tried really hard to make it work for something, anything, work, play, socializing, until they got bored with the idea of moving onto the even more money-burning idea of AI John Cena that texts your underage nieces and nephew.
The officer sees me, still catching my breath, and you, partially dressed. His eyes widen, and he says, "John Cena, you're under arrest for statutory rape."
Meta, after burning tons of money on the metaverse, have decided that they don't have enough money, data, and controversies. Going all in on artificial intelligences. Metaverses, what's that? Bitcoin, we could tie it into AI. AI, that's where it is. The company came up with its own LLM AI, or large language model AI, which they call Llama, or large language model meta AI. How original. Now that Zuckerberg is no longer worried about being thrown in prison after bribing, donating a large sum of money to the current fascist administration, he can focus his attention on ruining our fucking lives even more, contributing to the clear AI bubble that's forming.
I mean, didn't you just tell Trump you were going to spend like $600 billion? I mean, that's
I did, yeah, through 2028, which is
that's a lot of money.
It is, and if we end up misspending a couple of $100 billion, I think that is going to be very unfortunate, obviously.
We're gambling with our future, but they are adding Meta AI to the few successful products that they do have, the Meta Quest 3 and the Meta Ray-Bans. Virtual reality at the place formerly known as Facebook has been ostracized, as it was the location where most layoffs at Meta occurred in 2025. As the hardware market has tapered off, so has game sales. Analysts have found that a lot of people have purchased headsets, but they never really used it, which would indicate that few power users tend to buy a lot of the games we see, but the majority tend to allow for their VR headsets to gather dust. I know that making this video will attract VR enthusiasts. I just really want to talk about my own personal experience with VR. Since I made my original video, I've owned 2 headsets, so I do have some actual active experience. I'd say while it isn't my preferred way to game or experience anything really, I did enjoy it. I just find myself struggling to want to use it. But then when I do use it, I'll get drawn into it for weeks until I get distracted by a non-VR game that's nice and shiny. I just wish there was some kind of Half-Life Alyx game experience every year, but there's not. I was cautiously optimistic for VR, even though I was negative towards it years ago. The technology and promise was always something that fascinated me. I've had lots of fun with my Quest headset. For me personally, it seems my dusty Quest 2 would get played off and on. Recently, I upgraded to the Quest 3 because I don't know really. And that really turned into a dusty headset too. I guess I wanted to have my wife try it. Privacy concerns and sexual assault are something concerning. Turns out preying on our children and ignoring sexual assault is actually a feature and not a bug. Apparently they did the calculus and think that, yes, more child grooming, the more meats that Zuckerberg could buy. But of course, they've been losing billions on this whole endeavor. So maybe they just like all of this. Circling back to HTC, they still released the Vive line, but they're no longer partnered with Valve, focusing more on professional uses for the headsets. They're not really a player in this space anymore, for consumers at least. Valve has now started to release their own headsets with the Valve Index. And now, hot off the press's announcement, the Steam Frame. Half-Life Alyx seems to be the only traditional killer app. Enthusiasts, myself included, will mention their own preferred titles. As of 2024, there were 2 million sales of Half-Life Alyx. 4 years after I released my first VR Sucks video, people came into my comments proclaiming that VR was still alive. Hence, it took 4 years for them to come out with something noteworthy enough to have a flame war over. And in the 5 years since that, silence, really. Of course, the community still exists. VR chat seems to have built a community for free, what Zuckerberg has been willing to try to buy. For a while, it seems like Meta was going to continue to shovel money at the problem, paying for developers to make exclusive games for the platform. But now it seems like that has dried out. What seems like to be a slam dunk killer app, a remake of the fan favorite GTA San Andreas, was canceled. Or a Harry Potter VR game has been dropped as well. New products have just not been announced. Reality Labs are now being reported separately, probably to highlight to investors their commitment to their new AR Meta Ray-Ban glasses. Look how much money we're burning. People seem to be disappointed when a title is revealed to be a VR-only title. Comments tend to indicate, wow, cool looking game. Would be nice if people had the hardware to play it, especially these days when RAM costs an arm and a leg. A survey from Game Developer Collective found that half of developers felt that the VR industry was in decline or was just completely frozen. The other half wasn't really sure or felt like there was very modest growth. Of the developers not working on VR today, currently 53% felt like they would never work on VR in the future. That's not even including the recent layoff. Cloudhead, developer of the hit Pistol Whip, cut 70% of its workforce. Twisted Pixel Games, who made Deadpool VR, San Zero Games of Asgard's Wrath's fames, and Armature Studios, who made the excellent Resident Evil 4 VR, conducted significant layoffs. The whole industry is hurting right now, but it seems a lot of it seems to be localized completely in the kitchen that is VR. Palmer Luckey really crawled out of the military contractor hole he resides in to say, well, the layoffs are a good thing for the whole long-term health of VR. But Palmer, if your argument is that Meta is culling some of the proverbial fat from the company, that is somehow it got too big, then that's worrying because it got too big before virtual reality even had a surefire success, before it even became the preferred mode to do anything. Feels like it's a pipe dream and further away than it's ever been. This solidifies its place as a niche product. This seems contradictory to the industry forecasts that I've seen, though a lot of these seem to be from sources I can't really verify. So when I see Meta losing billions of dollars and industry developers and publishing being down on the whole endeavor, I feel like those guys have a better feeling of what's going on. Looking at Google Trends and interest in VR, it seems like to hum along after a spike in the initial release in 2016. Girls. Okay, Stella, but it's your sister's turn in the headset. You can play in an hour when it's your turn. Children. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button to support the channel for free. Press the new hype button if it's available for you. And until next time, do something nice for someone. I'm gonna make some gnocchi. Bye.